Alright guys, before Christmas, we have got 5 duo victory cash cups. So who better to learn from for winning games than Clicks and Higgs? These guys are genuinely eval victory cup specialists. Like every single time there is any type of victory cup or an eval cup, these guys are winning, they're getting first place, and they're making some earnings. So let's go figure out exactly what they're doing this season. Also, I should say, we don't just have 5 victory cups, but we've also got $1 million Unreal Cup in like 15 days from now. So it's gonna be very, very important that you guys figure out what you're doing in duos. So for the drop spot this season for these guys, they are landing at Wonky Land, and Wonky Land, in my opinion, is the best drop on the map. Like, this spot is absolutely nuts. These guys are coming away with like cap chug jugs basically every single game. That is how strong it is. And as you can see, the way they're able to do this is just by starting this challenge, shooting the targets over and over. They can get their metal at the same time, and they also have very, very nice rotates out of this spot. So let's just skip over early game. But early game, guys, honestly, I think the biggest thing is just to make sure you make off spawns. You can now play a lot more games in the 2 hours of the opens of the victory cups because the games are a little bit shorter. So you need to be trying to play around 6 end games if you want to have the best chance to qualify, is my advice. So make sure you choose somewhere where you're not going to be dying off spawn too much. You can only really afford to die once off spawn now. And of course, you need to be landing somewhere where you're not going to get over contested and super griefed like these guys probably might end up doing in the opens of a tournament if they're landing at Wonky Land. The first thing they do is they get themselves super stacked, and they make sure not to tank any storm. You can see the loadout's absolutely crazy. You need to make sure you don't tank any storm early game. You can maybe tank during the mid game if it's not a victory cup, if you're in an opens or whatever, but these guys make sure not to tank storm, and instead they just rotate in and they get themselves much further in, and they use the jetpack a bunch to get way further in than all these other teams. You can see the jetpack in, and what you want to try to do this season is basically just get deep on zones. I was figuring out, like, trying to figure out what's the best strat here. Pretty much just getting deep onto zones nice and early is typically the best thing that you can do in these cases, because of course when you're really deep like this team is right here, you don't have to move for the next, long time period, whereas other teams who are back on edge or they're over here way deep in storm, first of all, it's just gonna be very hard for them to win the game, and also it's gonna be very hard for them to have a good surge, when they're getting farmed later on. And now we're on to net surge. So if you take damage over and over on max rotates, you try to jetpack in the open, you're gonna have a very, very tough time. These guys do get into a fight in a second though. I want to break down exactly how they're able to win this fight. I do think fighting this season has got a lot harder just because the pumps don't do as much touch damage. You can't really bail yourself out. You need to be playing a lot smarter when you're in a fight so you don't get yourself killed. And these guys right here, as you can see, they get into a nice spot, they get nice and deep on zone, not just sitting on edge waiting for zone to pop, and they get themselves onto a vending machine. And the reason you want to get onto vending machines, by the way, is first of all, gold is like super easy to come by, so you can buy loads of ammo, and also you can buy patch ups, you can buy shield kegs. There's a lot of different things that you can buy from vending machines, and they're definitely useful to go to in the mid game, so you can always stay super stacked. So now for this actual fight, how do they get into it? First thing they're doing is they're just making a load of space, and they start sneaking, and they spot a team on their wall trying to get that vending machine. These vending machines back here are literally like so important to success in duos. Can't go down and drone free anymore, but they're so important to actually secure the vending machine in the mid game, because it's going to mean that you're in a really, really good position going into the end game. So see, Higgs sneaks up, gets the kill, and the other player trying to replace this wall, and now these guys are going to pressure over. And let's talk over to Clicks' POV right here, because he actually plays this fight pretty well. First thing he does is he doesn't get too crazy. He's not like going from a different angle. He's just fighting with his teammate, trying to secure the loop, trying to make sure they don't get awareness checked by scouting the back. Spots the other player is going up, and he does a very, very nice play here in a second. Spots the other players coming straight towards him. What does he do? Edits the cone to block off the shot, and this is one of the best plays you can do, is just reset without holding the edit. Whatever, you can reset and basically have perfect crosshair placement. Takes out the player at the 150, and just like that, these guys are fully stacked. Cat Mats going in game. They didn't really need that kill, but it's just good to get kills in, an opens format like this, because you get some points from it. Even in an eval format or a victory format, it's just good to get kills because you have a load of extra spare mats, as well as spare loot that you can use for your rotates. And now, these guys are going to do exactly that. They use the spare mats to have a nice, easy jetpack where they're fully protected as they go, and of course, they're going to dive down. And you want to try to, with the jetpack, is obviously you go straight up like that. You can either go straight down and then sort of wibble wobble like this, you can see, to like make it harder to get hit, or you can do what these guys do here, which is, because they know they're not really getting tagged too much, is you go straight up, then you go down, up like this, just to visualize it, and you can get a much further distance. So you can basically rotate like max distance pulls, just doing this over and over, and that's exactly what these guys do here. There's nobody shooting them, so they're able to just stay super high up. They keep wobbling around in the air, and they get themselves all the way in. And importantly here is they get up on a high layer, guys. Layers this season, like just having good layers, is so important, because first of all, it makes your jetpack rotates much easier. You're less likely to get beamed out of the air. You can go much further with the jetpack, as well as really, really importantly is if zone pulls and you get a really, really bad pull, you don't want to be jetpacking from like a super low layer where you're going to get held and you're going to get looked at much more than other teams. And now, fourth zone right here, we're going to go into the partial zones after this. And the zone mechanics this season are a little bit crazy. So you need to be like very alert with how you're rotating and how you're scouting. You don't really have too much downtime where you can just chill and refarm your mets. After this point in the game, you need to be very, very prepped going into the partial zones. And also, you know, just to be a good IGL, you need to always be ready to go early. Kind of what Higgs is doing here. He scouts, he realizes, okay, we could potentially go early, but we might need to get some surge. So let's wait a second, try to get some damage at least before we go. See, they get some damage, and then they're going to go on a nice timing. And this is something that I covered in the most recent academy session that we did. We're doing daily academy coaching. If you guys are interested, is for timings on these rotates, you kind of want to listen for other people to go. I don't know if you guys heard that. I tried to like stop yapping for a second, but you want to listen for other people to go and them to be jetpacking, or you hear them activate their jetpack, and then that is the timing window where you want to go. It's exactly what they do. They get that timing window where other people are jetpacking behind them and they're able to go in. And of course, very, very important is you want to try to layer up. You don't want to be like boxed ultra low ground going into moving zones. You want to try to go slightly up, especially if you get mats and you get extra refresh potential. Always want to try to go a little bit up rather than just being boxed down on low ground at this point in the game. They look back, try to get some more damage, trying to scout out what's going on, getting ready to rotate next zone as well, and then pulling zones straight towards them. And just like this, you can imagine if this was a max pull right here. So the reason I keep going on about the layers is they have no info what's over here, right? They have no info on what's going on over this direction when you don't go on high layers. So you need to make sure you always try, if possible, to land on a slightly higher spot or just build up a little bit when you land off your jetpack. Use a little bit of mats just so you have more information, just so you can have a better timing on your actual jetpack rotate. Luckily for them, it pulls pretty nice to them here. And what are they going to do? They're going to try to get in nice and early. They're not going to faff around too much. They're going to get in nice and early. They're also going to overbuild, go up layers as well, like I was saying earlier. So now they have an easy time where they can use their jetpack to actually, you know, instantly rotate next without having to build walls and make it super obvious that they're going. And they're going to look for even more surge. Whenever you're in a spot where you don't need to move, it's so important you don't just sit there and do nothing. You need to try to get some damage and try to grief some other teams, because the other teams are going to be really struggling for their heals if you keep on doing this over and over. It's also going to set you up nice to, like, you know, win the game, because they're going to be showers on heals. You get easier refreshes later. And also, it's quite easy to get like a knock on somebody out there and then go straight over and get the body at this point in time, which is exactly what they're trying to play for here. They're trying to grief people, they're trying to find a potential refresh, as well as soon as you, like, let's say this guy dies, that's an extra 600 mats that you could tarp over and grab quite easily if you're looking for it. You can see this guy's going to go down and somebody else is going to get the mats, which is very, very important that you try to do stuff like that just going into the end game. Other player goes down. These guys are going to tarp straight over. They're not able to get the mats right here. They do play a little bit patient when they're going for it, but they're able to get the scraps, get some extra med kits as well for the heal off later on. And just like that, these guys are, you know, absolutely chilling going into endgame. All right, now we're into the point in the game where you get an absolute max pull, and it's something that I've been trying to like figure out what is the best way of doing this rotate, because really you don't want to just be doing a last second jetpack rotate with everybody else. That feels like a very, very high chance of dying. The first thing you want to make sure you do is, especially, you know, if you're an IGL, is get a little bit of distance into zones. So you're not jetpacking, you know, as zone kicks you out. We're going to be a little bit further ahead. You can jetpack later and potentially also go further with your jetpack. That also means you're not going to be the first one to jetpack, so you're not going to be as likely to die out of the air. You want to try to get a little bit further in, get some high walls going so you don't get beamed, and also make sure when you do your jetpack, you're waiting for somebody else to go first, so you're not the only one getting looked at. And that's exactly what Higgs does right here. Waits for another team to jetpack. He's going to dive, makes it very hard for him to get beamed. And also be aware when you're jetpacking that you need to have some terrain that you're trying to use to your advantage, as well as you want to comm to your teammate where you're landing. Because right here, zone is opening up. You want to be comming mid-air. Are you landing on brick? Are you landing high ground? Are you landing on mid-ground layer? You want to comm exactly where you're landing so your teammate can land right on you like Clicks does there. And neither of you are going to take too much damage, especially when you time your rotates well. You're not going to take too much damage at all going into, you know, this zone right here. At this point in time, these guys continue to be aggressive. They continue to just look for refresh opportunities over and over. It's the benefit, you know, of their spot is they have so much heals where they can just look for refreshes. And also you can just do nice little things like this where you just steal people's kegs and stuff at this point in the game as well. You mentioned that, it's quite useful to do. And continue to look for refreshes, continue to pressure over and over. This is where buying lots of ammo earlier in the game is quite nice from the vending machines, because I mean, you can just spray over and over. Most people only get like 100 ammo in the current meta. There's just not that many ammo boxes. So if you get like, you know, 400 ammo, you're gonna have a much easier time of finding refreshes. Just like Clicks did right there. Lots of solo that they dropped down. They're able to bring all of the mats back over and get themselves into a nice position going into moving zone. Now, moving zones this season are a little bit complex because you need to be rotating them very, very well. So you've got a 20-second cooldown on the jetpack. You need to make sure, first of all, you have a good spot to jetpack from. And then also you need to be going underneath height, as you can see right here. You don't want to be flying up over high, you also don't want to accidentally be landing on them. You want to make sure you go underneath height like that, and you want to try to land on a high layer every single time. And as soon as you land on that high layer, go upper layer as well, just like Higgs did right there. Lands upper layer and also, you know, levels up at the exact same time that he does it. Now he's on a super high layer, absolutely chilling, and these guys are basically done with the whole of the first moving right there, and they can spend ages looking for a kill. The nice benefit when you do a jetpack and you land and then just tarp in is you get like 20 seconds where you can just look for a kill, and also because you're in such a good layer, it's quite easy to rotate the next zone as well. Now we're into ninth zone. These guys, what do? If they rotate, they don't jetpack instantly, since obviously, you know, you get sprayed at by height, you get looked at by a load of people. Instead, what they do is they sprint out of the box and do the exact same thing, where they just jump up, get up a layer, and they don't even take any damage right there. That's the benefit of just being ready and insta-going on these rotates that Higgs is doing so far, is you're able to do it. And now they're finally going to use the jetpack, and this is where you want to use the jetpack slightly different than earlier in the game goes. What you want to do, don't, you know, edit and do high walls, because obviously height's going to look at you. What you want to do is go out the back of your box like this, maybe even tank a couple ticks of storm to do this, and you're going to fly straight up. Make sure you're aware of where height is. They go underneath height right here, and just like before, what do? They land high layer and they just tarp, get extra deep with their tarp as well, and they're able to fully heal up. Now at this point in time, the very nice thing that Higgs did there is he claimed extra space front side. So now, as you guys can see, they've got a long time period where they can look for a kill, and also they're ahead of other teams. Like, they're one of the furthest teams in right here compared to all these other teams on backside, on low ground and things like that. So that allows them to go for a refresh, and they do this very nice refresh play where they block all the angles, get this wall right here, and they sneak in on this tarp. So they basically sneak into the tarp after they pre-edit, you know, get killed straight away. And of course this team thinks they're completely fine. They've been fighting backside, they can just run through the tarp. What happens? Higgs kills one of them in the backside. He gets the body straight away. Immediately after getting the body, is he gets out, doesn't even try to get the other guy's loot. He just gets out and prioritizes playing his life. And what does Clicks do? Absolutely perfect by him. The reason these guys win so many, you know, Victory Cup games, they're very good at swapping roles. As soon as Higgs takes a bit of damage, Clicks takes over tarp, and now he's full healed up with the chug. He's going to take over tarp with some nice snare tarps. As soon as he realizes they're getting into a sort of free area, as you can see, where they're the most front side team. They're also still playing a high layer, by the way. They're able to sprint, they're able to conserve a lot of mats. And now, as they get all the way front side, this is only when they start using their hards. They try to burn through wood on the middle of zone right there. Go for another refresh play, just like here. The pre-edit. Very good stuff. Didn't quite work, and now they're straight back into tarping, right? All you need is like one decent refresh going into moving zones this season, especially if you use a jetpack well, like you actually jetpack over and over, and you're basically chilling for the rest of the game. You don't really need to do too much in this situation. Now, at this point in time, Higgs does a very good play. He looked front side, and he realized that there is some crazy terrain going on. This is why this whole video I've been yapping on about going high ground, going high layers, is because height is going to be like, you know, not in the best way. They're going to be a little bit shambles up on height. They're going to be busy, and you can just rotate, and you can get up all the way front side like Higgs is doing here with this terrain change, and you can potentially go for height as well very easily, right? And the playbook for this is you just get a refresh, and then you go front side and you look for a refresh or look for a height chop from front side. So they get the refresh right there onto Cooper, just like that. I believe that's Cooper, and then they continue tarping, and they can continue to look at height as well if they wanted to, right? Like height here is definitely takeable, as you can see. It's just zone pulled back, so they didn't even think about going for height. Honestly, they probably should have just cranked up for height at this point in the game, but they're so used to playing mid ground, they're so used to like going for kills and things like that they continue to just play, you know, down or low ground. Here, Higgs has a very nice strat, which is the airport. You guys know what this is. Basically, you build a 2x2, and the reason why the 2x2 on low works so well is, as you can see, when you have this much space, look at how many solos and low HP players are running around on your walls, and you basically have, you know, free pickings on who you want to try to kill, and also who you don't want to try to kill. You can just keep tarping front side and use the 2x1 to actually, you know, alpha and claim all the space. This right here gets a free refresh on somebody dying on his wall, and just like that, these guys are basically into the final zone heal off in a second here. They do make an interesting play, which is dropping down to low ground and trying to fight the player down on low ground, as you can see. Other player down on low, what do? They cut them off, and now they're going to start fighting this other player after they've stolen front side from them. Full tarps front side. Clicks isn't faffing around trying to get mats too much. He's just making sure he's curing the back and making sure they're not getting jumped in on by the solo. And now, as soon as the solo is getting distracted, they take him out. And just like that, these guys are in a situation where it's a 2v1. The player on height really can't do much from up here. As you can see, he's just getting pressure like crazy. They chop him out. And I mean, there's nothing that guy can do in that situation. Basically, just guaranteed lost the game. And it's just because these guys chopped height over and over. Even though they didn't go for high ground, the fact that they chopped it a couple times earlier and got some damage onto the height players meant height was super scuffed. They ended up getting griefed by another team. Don't just think of like, you know, griefing height and that's going to help you take height. Grief height and just mess up their game and make it easier for you to win off mid ground or low ground, however you decide to play it. As you can see, these guys are able to win. And that's basically how you want to play the season, right? There's really not much to it. The main thing is just get a good position in nice and early, so you're not faffing around too much. You also try to get a vending machine so you can get yourself completely stacked. Try to maybe get a couple kills just before endgame so you're cat mats, and then it's all about just making sure you use the jetpack well, don't take too much damage, and you have good timings on your rotates when you actually do use the jetpack.